The reason why it's no longer good enough that there has been a model or a standard that enterprises have been leveraging for a very long time, and every enterprise that we have conversations with, they're all experiencing the same challenge, which is everyone continues to build thousands of applications, and every application has its own complexity, and every application has its own set of permissions and entitlements. But again, this model, and we call it isolated authorization, it's no longer good enough from a security standpoint, right? It's everyone's projects are tied to zero trust. We all know the saying, never trust, always verify, right? We want to make sure that users are accessing the information that they're supposed to or they're entitled to. This model leads to non-compliant, right? Because everyone's sort of doing their own thing. They're all on their own island, right? Everyone's got their own set of policies. It's really hard to work with other business units. It's expensive because you got to continue to hire developers, and again, it's inefficient from a auditing standpoint, right? It's really hard for auditors to go into each individual application, look through code to ensure that the enterprise is being compliant to the regulations that they need to adhere to. And sort of continuing on that trend again, with the isolated authorization model, the traditional IAM solutions that have been around for a very long time, again, are no longer good enough, again, from a best practices security standpoint. Majority of enterprises today are still on the RBAC model. Again, just leveraging a user's role to ensure that they're accessing the right information in the right time, in the right context, again, is no longer good enough. You got to go beyond just who the user is and their role. We need to bring in a lot more information that we know about the user, or the resource that they're trying to access, to ensure again they're accessing the information that they're supposed to. A lot of times, with these traditional solutions, context is ignored. Again, we're just going off who the user is, what their title is. We're not taking into consideration on where they're located, the date and time of day, what are the resources that they're trying to access. Should we leverage the metadata to ensure again they're accessing the right information. And then as well, risk is also not taken into effect. And there's sort of two use cases that we're hearing from enterprises. You've got the internal use case, where let's say Matt and I were working on a project together, and we've shared our login information because maybe I went on vacation and we needed to finish the project. And let's say 6 months down the line, I leave the organization, and Matt now knows my username and password, right? So when he logs in, yes, he's logged in as Jamie Burns, but he really isn't Jamie Burns, right? Because again, we're just basing it off, who he is and what his title is, right? We're not taking into consideration other factors of his location, his IP address. Let's pull in a risk score from someone like CrowdStrike or another tool that can provide us with a risk score. Because again, we want to make sure that your users are accessing information they're supposed to, and of course, ensuring that you're complying with your specific regulations. And then the other use case is the external use case, right? Unfortunately, there's not nice people out there who are stealing people's identity. So again, we want to make sure that users are who they say they are, and of course, accessing the information that they're supposed to.
Yeah, maybe just on that, one of the points that you made that I really want to highlight quickly, Jamie.
Yes.
That legacy approach, it's basically what you were saying. It's a very much a binary approach to authorization, which means you have access, you don't have access. It's not taking into any of the other considerations, like where you are, what you're doing at the time, what you've been doing over the course of the day. It's not looking at that dynamic risk associated with your behavior at this given moment in time. And that's really where ABAC starts to shine. It's not binary. It's not yes, no. It's yes, no, but also the advice and obligation. But it's also looking at this exact moment in time.